Dr. Chetty, just a moment.
Sure.
Dr. Chetty?
Yes, carry on, Prof.
Yeah. Can I just map out a few house rules? I've just noted that if we don't get clear about these things, we always experience difficulties. Simple house rules, please, for everyone who's in attendance. While the speakers or while the presentation is taking place, please mute your mics. Virtuality is a wonderful thing because we're able to do things while we can't meet, but there are always these practices that come in where some people unmute their mics and you hear conversations taking in the background that disturb. So please, may I ask, as part of house rules, that we mute our mics while the presenters are on. And if Dr. Kinjolo is in the house, please indicate your presence. Anyway, it doesn't matter, I'll find out about him. So, yes, Dr. Chetty, go ahead. I just thought it would be clear that we clarify those house rules. Thank you.
Thanks, Prof. Once again, good morning, colleagues, and thank you to Program Director as well. And right at the outset, let me say thank you very much to Prof. Space for
Dr. Chetty? Dr. Chetty, can you hear me? I'm sorry. I think we seem to be having a problem hearing you. Your sound is totally bad. I can't hear you anything that you're saying. And it seems like I'm not the only person. Dr. Chetty, are you there?
Hi, Dr. Chetty. I don't know if I'm the only one here. I think your connection is not solid. You are breaking up. I don't know if this is only me who is experiencing that. Dr. Chetty? Yes?
Hi, Prof. Letzika. I think he's lost connectivity. I've just sent him a WhatsApp to alert him. Hopefully he'll be back just now.
Yeah. I just thought I would come in because I thought I was the only one who was missing, but I thought no, let me find out. I just confirmed to me there's something really terrible about the connectivity. Okay, let's give him a moment. Let's hope he'll come back.
Prof. Letzika, I just chatted with Denzel. His electricity has just gone off. He's just reconnecting through his phone. He'll be here momentarily.
Thank you. Hi everyone, and thanks for the update. It looks like Dr. Chetty is having a power outage issue, so he's making alternative arrangements to get connected. Please bear with us. These things happen. So we'll give him a moment to get back into the stream to reconnect, and then we'll take it from there. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, colleagues. I'm hoping you can hear me now.
Yes, we can, and welcome back. Yeah, welcome back. We just understood. We got information that you're experiencing some power outage issues, and thankfully you're back. Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Thanks, Prof. Apologies for that, colleagues. I actually
the power is technology. Yeah, it's technology. Yeah. This thing happened.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks,
all right. Go ahead.
So I'm managing to hotspot of my phone, so I'm hoping that this actually works out well for us. So once again, colleagues, thank you very much to Prof for allowing us this opportunity to engage with each one of you, as well as giving us this platform, and we really appreciate that, Prof. At this time, I'm going to ask my colleagues to quickly introduce themselves to you. As we noted earlier, this is a team presentation, so I'm going to ask my first colleague, Dr. Salosh Govender, just to introduce herself and welcome you. Salosh.
Good morning, colleagues. I'm Salosh Govender, and I am an education consultant from DCDT. I currently, I'm also a member of the ADOVH project. Thanks.
Thanks, Salosh. Followed by that, colleagues, we have Dr. Ingrid Murray.
Morning, colleagues. My name is Ingrid Murray. I'm from the Department of Anthropology and Archaeology, and I have an interest in using technology in education as well as academic integrity. And I'm happy to be sharing with you today. Thank you.
Thanks, Ingrid. Then Dr. Sheila. Thanks, Dr. Sheila. Dr. S.
Thank you, colleagues. Good morning. I'm Ramashehu Shilamphatlele from the Department of Early Childhood Education. I'm passionate about online teaching and student support, and I'm also part of the ADOVH project, and I'm happy to share my experience with you. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. And then Professor Vanessa Sherman.
Good morning, colleagues. I hope all is well. My name is Vanessa Sherman. My home is in the Department of Psychology of Education, and I'm also an academic associate as part of ADOVH, and really looking forward to this engagement with you today. Have a look. Thank you.
Thanks, Vanessa. And last but not least, so Richard.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Richard Wright. I'm a digital learning advisor in the Western Cape region, currently working on the ADOVH project as an educational technologist. And I hope you enjoy everything we have to show you today. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. So thank you, colleagues, for that. So colleagues, these are the team members that will be presenting today with me. I'm going to share my screen, and I'm hoping that we can, Richard, you can confirm with me if my slide is showing. Richard?
Yes, Denzel.
Go ahead. Thanks, colleagues. Okay, so colleagues, this presentation, as Prof noted, is done by the Academic Development Open Virtual Hub, and it serves as an incubator for digital innovation in teaching and learning. Now, when we spoke to Prof and Prof asked us, would we be interested in sharing a presentation as part of the UNESCO Chair's Open Distance Learning Research Webinar Series, we thought of a title of how we would want to position this presentation. And we looked at how innovation is done internationally, but more specifically how innovation fits into the African context. And we titled our presentation today, Digital Innovation in Teaching and Learning in and for Africa, with emphasis on the in and for Africa. Now, to unpack this a little bit, we looked at the idea of what are these concepts that we're looking at. So digital innovation, if we try to break that down, looks at a new idea. It's disruptive, radical innovation, technology that what we know is technology that disrupts the existing norm, and a breakthrough that offers transformation to some extent, but creates new spaces of engagement. The second point is that we wanted to really foreground this presentation is that it is contextually relevant innovation. That means innovation that takes into consideration the social, cultural, economic and political factors of the African continent. Now, in taking this, we also know that innovation is designed in Africa and for Africa. That means it's solution driven to address some of the challenges that we face in our context. It is also innovation that can be benchmarked internationally. So we are not just developing innovation, or we're not just building on innovation outside of the bigger picture of the global trends as well. The third point for us, what was quite important for us, is that it is policy-driven innovation. And then we looked at the Africa Agenda 2063 and the UN SDGs to look at well-educated citizens, skills revolution underpinned by science, technology, and innovation, the education and science technology-driven skills revolution. And it also is to ensure inclusive and some form of equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. Now that fits very well with what we are trying to articulate as part of the Academic Development Virtual Hub, and more specifically our vision for what we do. The fourth element is it's institutional driven, and while we are foregrounding it in and for Africa, we don't operate or we don't function in isolation from the institutional driven agenda. And this is based on the institution's mandate, the strategy of becoming that leading ODEL university in Africa. Now, the presentation for us today, just to outline how we will structure our presentation. So I will briefly talk to you a little bit about ADOVH, some of the activities that we do in terms of the ADOVH Innovation Teaching and Learning Series, the ADOVH Mini Studio, the ADOVH MOOCs, the ADOVH Gamified MOOC, just an introduction to that. By that, my colleague Ingrid will talk about using ADOVH Mini Studio to develop quick student video tutorials. Thereafter, we will have Salosh, who will talk about content development for an African gamified MOOC. And literally mapping up the process of how we foregrounded an African gamified MOOC. Followed by that, we will have Dr. Sheila, who will talk to us about storyboarding and how we storyboard an African gamified MOOC. Thereafter, Richard will take us through the technology that is used to develop the gamified MOOC and do a slight demo for us, but not giving away too much because we will launch the but not least, we will have Professor Vanessa, who will talk about the research methodology and opportunities that underpins a lot of the work that we're doing as part of ADOVH, but also to feed back into the institutional ideas of disseminating a lot of our findings in terms of our research. Now, let me start by ADOVH as an exponent of innovation in teaching and learning in Africa. So the Unisa Academic Development Open Virtual Hub, as noted by our program coordinator, was established in 2020 as part of a research, part of a DED COVID-19 responsiveness grant. ADOVH serves as an incubator for innovation in teaching and learning. An incubator means that we don't mass roll out innovation without testing it in a safe space first. And this is where ADOVH becomes quite important for us, is that as an institution, we have that space, that safe space to test innovation before we can roll it out to the entire institution. ADOVH does not replace any support departments. So that means that we collaborate as a safe space to explore innovation. We collaborate, for example, with the Center for Professional Development, the student retention units, some of the academic colleges, and some of the initiatives that are done by other colleges as well. So it doesn't replace, but it supports and creates an alternative space for innovation in the institution. It is self-sustained. That means we are not funded by the institution. We are funded through grants, and more specifically, the particular grant that is running or supporting our endeavors are the DED UCTB grant for 2020, 2021, 2021 to 2023. ADOVH is also linked, and I mentioned this earlier, is that we want to foreground ourselves as part of the institutional vision. And we focus, area one looks at the Unisa strategy to accelerate the shift of becoming Africa's leading ODL university. And we know that this space is quite broad. And if we can make a small mark in terms of what we mean by innovation in an African context, it gives us that legitimacy as an organization to say that we are achieving some form of accelerating that shift towards becoming a leading ODL university. It's also founded on or established on the VC's priority, or what we should call the catalytical niche areas, which is digitization and 4IR. Now, the concept or the term academic development open virtual hub. Academic development basically means, when we use the concept academic development, we talk about both academic development of staff and student competencies. So we're talking about that professional development, those skills that are beyond the subject niche specific areas. We're looking at open. Open implies that we have an open philosophy to how we train and design our innovations. That means it must be available for public knowledge consumption. It is not restricted to access. That means any other institution can also tap into these type of developments that we are doing and use it as part of their own institutional resources. Virtual stems largely from the fact that the COVID-19 forced us to rethink a lot of the ways that we do our teaching and learning. And here in this space, virtual means that we fundamentally employ or deploy a virtual space to engage with our training, whether it's on the online platform or whether it's using synchronous or asynchronous approaches, it's done virtually. However, we do supplement that with some of our physical sessions where possible and where it necessitates that critical engagement of staff in a physical space. The last part for us was quite important. In our previous VP of Teaching and Learning, and Community Engagement Student Support, Prof. McKay, actually stressed this point quite importantly for us, is that a hub creates a space for colleagues around the institution to network in the central space. It means that we can bring academic expertise into this space for us to engage with each other. As you have seen from the introduction of the colleagues, that they come from different areas within the institution, which means we are able to tap across those interdisciplinary spaces, bring in academics experts, and also from the regions as well, into a community of practice that where we can really benchmark ourselves and say, this is what we're establishing as part of an institution. So that the notion of an hub for us is quite important in terms of how we function as a unit. The ADOVH Innovation in Teaching and Learning series. This is the first thing that we launched, and it was launched in February 2021 as part of our way to, at the very first point, to say, what is the current trends in the international space? And the aim of this Innovation in Teaching and Learning series was to literally look at what the global space is in terms of what is happening in terms of teaching and learning, the digital teaching and learning transformation agendas across the globe. And here the aim, colleagues, was to broaden the academic broaden academic, our insights to global trends in teaching and learning. But we also wanted to engage with best practice between both national and international space for showcasing best practice from not just distance learning universities, but also from residential universities, so that we could see and learn, especially from how some residential universities was making the transition into an online space. So we brought in, this was only last year. So last year we ran the Innovation Teaching and Learning Series, and we brought in speakers from, for example, Dr. Alexandra Pickett from USA, Professor Marcus Speck from Netherlands, Dr. Kalma Genovic from Lancaster, Dr. Yeshe Moore from Israel, Andrea Inamarato dos Santos from Brazil, but also European Commission. She's currently in Spain. Paul West, Tony Elliott, and Professor Motsepo Matuane in the South African context. And then we also brought an institution on board, Shanghai Open University, who we have close ties with, to look at their smart center that they had developed. So Marcus Speck spoke more profoundly about what it meant to do mobile and seamless learning in his context. And then Dr. Andrea Inamarato, colleagues, for those of you that know her work, she spoke much on open pedagogies in the digital era. And then Dr. Yeshe Moore spoke about the idea of hybrid learning. We really challenged our notion because we often use these concepts that we take for granted, and this actually created more space for us to engage with. How are some of these concepts used in an international space? And then the three local, and I say local inverted commas, Paul West, Tony Elliott, and Prof. Motsepo Matuane really tried to bring the discourse back home to say, if these are the international trends, what exactly are the trends for us in the South African context that we need to narrow our focus on? And these key colleagues helped us to problematize the challenges that we face when we benchmark against international exposures. And then we had the Shanghai Open University. They've established a new, what they call their smart center, or the smart professional development center, with a whole lot of sophisticated technology, virtual reality, augmented reality. And we're not yet there as an institution, but it gives us some kind of idea of where we want to see ourselves as an institution in terms of how we want to plot ourselves. And then we had Alexandra Pickett, who is the Director of Online Teaching at State University of New York, and she spoke more specifically about the type of quality review rubrics that they use for developing some of their materials and how they license that as open materials that we could actually integrate in our own institutional context. And then we concluded the year with Dr. Janja Kolmajenovic, who's the Director for Center for Higher Education and Research at Lancaster University. And a very critical debate that she brought to the table was the idea of education policy and governance, digitization. What exactly does it mean in terms of us thinking of the privatization of platforms, for example, where we find ourselves as Unisa with Moodle and the privatization of platforms. Sorry, colleagues, about that. So here, more specifically, we looked at the datification, platformization, digitalization, and what that means for us as an institution. Thereafter, my second point that I want to talk about is the phase one of the ADOVH Mini Studio. And this was an important one for us. The ADOVH Mini Studio was something that we wanted to bring into the university context, but more specifically looking at how we can contextualize innovation in multimedia resources in teaching and learning. I want to share some of these findings with you. So let's look at some of the challenges of why we put this on the table firstly. The first challenge was not fully integrated multimedia as part of our teaching and learning, right? So that meant that while we had the opportunity to integrate multimedia resources, we did not fully integrate it into our teaching and learning. The second point was that as much as we pushed the agenda of technology in teaching and learning, we still had to a great extent PDF behind glass text-based integration. So we really needed to know how we push forward innovation in teaching and learning that sees multimedia resources as part of our technology. The third challenge was in Unisa ICT infrastructure, and we know that multimedia studios has a very sophisticated state-of-art kind of studio setup. But it also means that we need to book in advance, and then we also have to follow the producing of video clips, etc., as part of this. And that does if we really want that state of class kind of videos, multimedia colleagues, Multimedia Center really pushes this high class kind of, and we produce many videos with them. But we also wanted something that could produce videos on demand, right? And Unisa academics, Unisa academics don't have the support staff to produce those videos. They also have a lack of ICT resources to self-produce quality videos on demand, right? Then the challenge was a lack of technical skills to record, edit, and upload or distribute a video resource. Now, we know that these are the challenges that we face in the Unisa context. And if we want to really embrace the e-learning part of our agenda, we really need to think out of the box. And this is where innovation becomes quite important for us. And the solutions, when we start thinking of the solutions, a simple quality. Okay, colleagues, I'm hoping that my connection is still secure.
Yes, Denzel, it just faded a bit now, the last 10 seconds.
Colleagues, apologies. I hope I'm back online now. Colleagues, can you
Yes,
hear me?
you are, Dr. Dick.
Thanks, colleagues. Apologies for that. It's yeah, this is one of the nightmares that we have in terms of not just technology, but in terms of ESCOM. Okay, so colleagues, so the idea was to produce videos on demand in good studio-like quality with limited or no skills needed, minimum or no editing, academic support staff, control and production process and speed, but also to produce as many videos as possible without waiting. So we launched the ADOVH Mini Studio, and I'm not going to break down a little bit what the ADOVH Mini Studio is. So it was launched on the 10th of September 2021 by the Executive Director for the Department of Tuition Support and Facilitation of Learning, Professor Makasho, and the then Vice Principal of Teaching and Learning, Professor Veronica McKay. We also had the honor of having Professor Muketsi Leteka as our key speaker, the only speaker for the day, actually. And he did a brilliant presentation on thinking about the 4IR and the evolution of the 4IR and digital innovation, specifically in the African context, but also problematized some of the key elements in terms of thinking of our student profile as well. And we benchmarked this particular studio against the University of Cape Town's one-button studio, firstly, Sakai. Then we also looked at, previously we had visited, if you recall, when Professor Rosemary Moketi was Executive Dean of College of Human Sciences. At that point, we had a group that visited Sao Paulo, and we looked at a similar one-button studio at that point. And then we realized, when we did some of our benchmarking, that one button was really becoming outdated in terms of what we wanted. And we had an example of the University of California, San Diego studio unit, Extron, which we then benchmarked against. And you'll be able to watch. I'll ask my colleague Richard to put up this link for you on the chat so that you can also watch the launch video as part of this. So colleagues, we benchmarked this against a simple studio look and feel unit that gives us that full studio professional look, but at a simple insertion of a USB device. So for example, In the studio, you will find a 50-inch LCD, which you can then view your recording, share your PowerPoint, share your live screen recordings. And this is included a 4K video camera, which has zoom in and zoom out, pan in, pan out capabilities. And it creates that real studio-like experience. Now, the entire studio is automated. When we say automated, it means that all you need to do is walk into the studio with a USB device. You simply insert the USB device into a unit that I will show you, and the entire studio, from lights, camera, screens, computers, everything comes on by just that simple insertion of that USB. So it is fully automated, right? This box, the Extron streaming media processor, controls the automation of the entire studio, right? And in it, you don't even need to do anything in the box because, as I said, the entire system works by a USB device. We also, in order for us to ensure that professional look of the video that many of our academics want, we've installed 3 backgrounds, a black background, white background, gray background, and a green screen. And then we've also got the professional lighting as part of the studio, and that really gives us that professional look and feel. And I must also commend our colleagues from the Multimedia Center under the leadership of Ms. Kanisila Tabo, who helped us to really conceptualize and bring about what we were thinking in terms of the studio.
Dr. Chetty, I think we lost you a bit.
Dr. Chetty, we lost contact. Dr. Chetty, we seem to have lost contact with you. Can anyone in the team who has a better connection please take over from there? We seem to have lost Dr. Chetty.
I will. It's Dr. Marie speaking. I'm just finding his PowerPoint, and then I will continue where he is.
Yes, please.
It might take a minute or two for me to find
okay.
it.
Yeah, I think he seems to be struggling with connectivity.
Yes, definitely. ESCOM is not our friend today.
I know. No one is spared.
Clearly not.
Thanks, Marie. Go ahead.
All right. Sorry, it's just, sorry, I'm just getting the presentation. Denzel, if you come back in the meantime, let me know. Hi, Denzel.
Ingrid, I can share the presentation from my side as well, but maybe you want to continue with your presentation, then we can just, when at the end, just summarize it back to Denzel's presentation.
All right, Richard, what do you? I think there's only a few slides left of Denzel's presentation, and I can quickly, if you have it, we can quickly just do the last bit of it on the studio, because it's helpful if they know the just sort of the background for the studio, and then I can do we'll go on to my presentation. So Denzel will join us when he can. So the in the studio you have these lighting that goes on as soon as you connect your USB. It's fully automated. there's a computer that connects with a screen that's in front, so you can project either your presentation, do a live session with, for example, navigating a website or whatever it is that you're doing. And there's various options within the studio on how to use the table where everything is on. And this is how it works basically. You connect a USB storage device, and the moment that you connect that device and you press the moment you connect the device, the lights go on, and if you press record, everything records automatically after about 3 seconds. And then there's various tools, whether on the left-hand side you can see some buttons. There's a full screen tool, whether you are a small part of this, whether you are full screen on being recorded, whether you are recording your screen only, whether you are a small insert within the screen. And it's literally as simple as clicking one of those 4 buttons. And when you are finished, you click stop, and it takes about 2 seconds, and it is everything is done. And this is just one of the ways that it can record. So then what we are launching a number of MOOCs. These MOOCs are self-paced. There's no start and end date. They use multimedia. They are developed by a team within ADOVH, so both from the academic side, but also people that are specialists in student support, etc. And these MOOCs are really designed to increase student throughput and retention through a lot of very basic skills development. These MOOCs are all released as open educational resources, so it's not only useful for South Africa, for Unisa students, but also students in other, in other contexts, other universities. And then we have webinars where we spend a lot of time to train students within Unisa specifically, and at the same time we refer those students in the webinars to the MOOCs. Richard will share some more on the gamification MOOC later. So what MOOCs we've developed for this, last year, 2021, is online assessment practices, introduction to online assessment, best practices in online assessment and feedback. And especially the first one has had quite a lot of participants, but the others are also fairly well attended. Although, of course, as we know, not everyone that starts a MOOC finishes a MOOC. So what OERs we've developed is we've focused a lot on things that would be useful for students, as well as for staff. So for academic development, we've developed OERs around online assessment, feedback strategies, and the list is on the screen. And as you can see, they are getting quite a lot of use. So there's definitely a sense of what we're doing is useful for the academic community in Unisa and beyond. Some more webinars that we've hosted in 2021 was orientation towards online skills. We've had presentations at UKZN and as well as Durban University of Technology. So we're definitely not just focusing inward into Unisa, but also outward towards the academic community in South Africa. Richard? And then we've developed basic skills. We've developed MOOCs for students, how to be an online learner, the personal skills that students need for online success, digital skills, online ethics and etiquette and safety. And this is all part of the core skills for being an online learner. Next one. And we've had large numbers in 2021 of students attending our presentations, downloading, watching the webinars, downloading our MOOCs, etc. And I think it's especially around exam times when students really find our work helpful, although this year we've really tried to also do it right from the beginning. Then we're also doing a gamification learning program, and I'm going to leave that to Richard to discuss more thoroughly. But we are basically trying to show academics how you could have a gamification approach towards learning. And one of the things that we are spending time on is how to integrate a chatbot into that gamification MOOC so that students could have support the entire time. All right. And I think, all right. So what I'll do next is I'm going to share my screen and just talk a little bit about sort of what I'm really interested in and passionate about. And that is has to do with how to make videos and sort of the whys and the hows for making videos. Richard, can you tell me whether my screen is sharing?
Yes, Ingrid, you shared the presentation. So
perfect. That's what I wanted to do. Thank you. All right. So really what I'm going to spend 5 to 10 minutes on is developing student tutorials within the ADOVH studio. And that's why I wanted to finish that bit about the studio before we came to my presentation, and that is simply because so I've been making videos at Unisa for a number of years. I've had one rather shambolic training in how to make videos. So I'm not a video expert. You know, I didn't go to how to make videos school, and I have to admit I probably have very little talent for making videos. But I can see the value that it has for students, and the advantage of the ADOVH studio is that it has made the technical part, that's often the most intimidating part for staff. It's made it really easy because literally what you're doing is you are pressing a button, as you know, it's those 4 buttons that we showed you. You press a button to press, or you put in a memory stick and it records. So what the ADOVH studio does is it takes away the need for academics to also learn how to be good videographers or to use editing software, because really that is it is done, everything is in studio. You push in a memory stick, you get it out, it is all there. So what that means is that instead of academics kind of fearing or getting bogged down in how to use Camtasia, for example, they can just conceptualize what is the point of this video or this interaction that they want to have with their students. And there's a few principles that I think is really important, but I think what the ADOVH studio does, it takes away the fear and it gives academics a safe space to really not get bogged down in technicalities or not get bogged down in trying to navigate a system that's maybe not always as friendly as it can be. So really, when you're thinking about making videos for your students, there's a few things, really 4 principles almost, that you have to think about. And the first one of that is signaling. How can you reduce the extraneous load? How can you make sure that what you're highlighting the most important information? So what are you showing on your screen? What colors are you using? Things like that. Segmenting, making sure that you make short videos rather than long videos, and there's two reasons for this. So if you think of the South African context, our students might not have the bandwidth to watch a 2-hour-long video, but they could very easily watch, you know, a couple of 6 minutes videos. And there's research that shows that the shorter videos, 6 minutes seems to be like the time span that videos are being watched by students. I also quite like the idea, and I've done it a few times, of making short videos, uploading it on the LMS as sort of one distribution channel, but then also sending it to students via Telegram and WhatsApp and whatever other student channels we have. And that, with my students at least, that is quite popular. Then weeding, eliminating extraneous load, and I'm a big one for this. You know, keeping it clean and simple. I'm not a big fan of adding music to videos because, well, for my own learning, I've learned I get very distracted with music, but also that's, you know, learning theory, whatever, says that, you know, we should take away stuff that's not necessarily necessary for our students. And then matching modalities. So how can you use both auditory and visual cues at the same time? And that's why videos can be quite useful, because you could have written information, you can have visual information, there's auditory information. And with that, I'm not saying, I'm not buying into learning types, but we do, you know, at different times we do hear and listen differently. So that's kind of the things that we can do. The one thing about the mini studio is it makes the quality of what we can do much better. You know, I'm a big fan of the principle of good enough. You know, something is good enough. So I'm happy to do things on my phone, but you know, this is not necessarily ideal. And if you can, then you know, have a better quality by simply going to a studio, that is, you know, that really seems ideal to me. So Michael Wish, who's one of my favorite anthropologists, he talks about the XY recipe for making videos. He says, what is the video about? The X, and the Y, why is it important? You know, so he has this idea of a hero's journey, making sure that there's a story basically to what you are telling your students in this video. But the technical aspect has now been taken care of, right? You go to the studio, you stick in a memory stick, you record, you take it out, you go and upload it on your LMS. But so it means that we can focus on the important work before we get to the studio, and that is writing a storyboard, working from a script, and applying course design principles in this. You know, and I've talked a little bit about some of the principles of how we can do it. But I think for me, the most important thing about making videos is students really love any personal touches that we can get. From my experience, students often feel alone, and we know from Odell theory that, you know, transactional distance is something that we really have to think about when we are teaching in distance learning. So what I found is if you put your personality into these videos, and whether that is having yourself on the screen at some stages, not necessarily at all of the times, you know, or just the way that you speak, the way that you engage students, it humanizes us as their lecturers, but it also, yeah, I think it reduces some of the transactional distance in a very short and easy way. And the best thing about videos is they are normally reusable. So if you do it once, you know, you can keep on using it. And that's something that I found. I make videos and podcasts and all sorts of things throughout you know, throughout the semester, and then next year, next time I run the course, there's something for my students. So I would really like to encourage you to go make use of the ADOVH students. It is really the easiest process that you can do to make videos, and there is value in making the videos itself. So I'm going to pause there and hand over to, who am I handing over to? I think to Salosh.
Yes, Ingrid, it's me. Thanks.
All right, I'm going to stop sharing and you can share. Oh, I hope they have stopped sharing. I don't know. Stop presenting. There we go. Thank you, Salosh. Can you share your screen?
Okay. Ingrid, are you able to see it?
Not yet.
Not yet. Just let me know if it comes up.
So Salosh, we can see on our side.
Okay, perfect.
I can.
Oh yes, we can see it now.
Okay, okay. Good morning, colleagues. My topic is the content development of the gamified MOOC. The overview of this presentation is as follows. I will explain what is gamification and how it differs from game-based learning. Then I will move on to gamification design framework, which we used in the in designing the MOOC. The themes and the outcomes of the gamified digital literacy MOOC, the game elements and the mechanisms we integrated in the MOOC, examples of engaging activities, and then I will share with you some examples of how we integrated some gamified techniques and elements in the MOOC. Okay, so the digital literacy MOOC was developed by a team of ADOVH members, and it follows a gamified approach to learning. Why we say gamified is it integrates game elements such as points, badges, rewards, and leaderboards to the course. Now, a gamified MOOC is different from game-based learning. With game-based learning, you'll have more games integrated in the learning process. But with gamified learning, it is an integration of badges, scores, points, and so forth. A gamified approach promotes engagement, interaction, motivation. It results in deep critical thinking, problem-solving skills, and so on. When we designed this MOOC, we realized that the focus is the learning outcomes. So as a team, we sat together as an ADOVH team and we brainstormed the learning outcomes that we found to be critical for the digital literacy MOOC. And thereafter, we planned activities to engage students in meaningful, practical, and interactive ways. We looked at how the activities could engage students and to motivate students to complete these activities. Next, we looked at how we could integrate gamified elements such as points, badges, and so forth. Okay. We followed the WebEx gamification design framework. In this framework, there are 4 key steps. Step number 1 is why are we applying gamification? And to answer that, we looked at the goal. And if we ask ourselves, why are we applying gamification? We want to increase students' engagement. We want to motivate the students. We want to get the students to complete the course from the beginning to the end. And we thought about which is the best way, and then we realized that to gamify a MOOC is one way that we can get students to complete the full course. Number 2, what do we want people to do? What actions? And to answer the question, what do we want people to do? We looked at why are we creating this MOOC? Why are we designing this MOOC? What do we want to achieve from this MOOC? Then we realized that we want to achieve is we want our students to become competent in digital literacy so that they can succeed with their qualification and their studies at Unisa. Then we also looked at, it's not only the students that we want to support. We thought of if we design a high quality MOOC, it would serve as a good exemplar for other academics to follow. And they could also gamify some of the aspects in their own online course. Number 3, who are we designing for? The players. Here we looked at the students, we looked at academics, we looked at ECs, and we also looked at anyone who wants to upskill their digital literacy skills. But specifically, we considered the students as our larger target, because we want to upskill their digital skills so that they can succeed. And in this way, we could improve student throughput and retention. We also looked at if we designed a good MOOC, as I mentioned earlier, it could serve as an example or exemplar for other academics to follow. How can we design it? This is a system. Here we realized that we needed design principles, and we also needed the technology to design a gamified MOOC. And within ADOVH, we've got quite competent people. We've also got a team that looked at the technological aspect of this whole gamified MOOC. Right. So when we designed the team, we also had a team that designed the storyboard for this MOOC. And my colleague, Dr. Mpashlela, will discuss the storyboard design. So when we thought about the design, we thought, how could we Africanize this MOOC? So the storyboard team integrated an African storyline to get this MOOC going. The themes and the outcome that the team came up with, we came up with 5 themes, and these are the outcomes. The first theme is a foundational terms, which was developed by Bronwyn Wright. Here, the outcome was for students to understand and apply foundational digital concepts that will help them to master more advanced concepts. And then the next theme was basic navigation. Here we wanted students to navigate safely and confidently between online sources and the e-learning management systems and the platforms. The third theme was content development, where we wanted students to know how to manage the internet searches and create content using a range of digital tools and applications effectively. The fourth theme was content sharing, where we wanted students to know how to share content, knowledge and resources using a variety of digital devices and tools. And the last theme was collaboration and using digital tools to help students to communicate, collaborate through engaging in digital networks for learning and research. The creation of content or activities for gamification. As I mentioned earlier, the learning outcomes helped us to determine the educational content, the activities and the appropriate game mechanics and the techniques that we thought we would integrate in the MOOC. We were mindful constantly that what needed to be achieved is the learning outcomes, and the game techniques and elements were simply an enabler or a vehicle to help students to achieve the learning outcomes. We didn't want the game to override the outcomes. The content had to be interactive, engaging, and rich in multimedia elements. The learning activities are developed and tailored to the learning objectives, and we made sure that the learning activities allowed for the following: multiple performances. We want students to repeat the activities or the questions, so that, even if they experience an unsuccessful attempt the first time, we want them to try again so that they can achieve the goals. Number 2 is feasibility. The learning activities had to be authentic, practical, and achievable. We want our students, by learning to do those activities, they must see purpose in it. They must realize that it is going to help me in some way to improve my own studies, for example. The next key point was increasing the difficulty level. Here, this was very important for us because we kind of scaffolded the students' learning. We scaffolded the complexity and difficulty of the learning activities. Why? It's because we want the students to gain or to earn points, scores, so that they could earn badges in return for the scores. So as they, so if the activities are more simple towards at the beginning, we know that students are going to be motivated as they are going to earn points and scores and badges and so forth. There are multiple parts. We want the students to have diverse ways of achieving the learning outcomes. Here, we didn't just think of one activity for a learning outcome. We had multiple activities because we want our students to follow multiple parts in achieving the learning outcomes. Now, adding the game elements and mechanisms. The key element of gamification is the inclusion of tasks that learners have to perform, right? So when you are planning a gamified course, you have to look at engaging activities as a point of departure. And the performance of tasks leads to the accumulation of points, the transition to higher levels and winning awards. So when we gamified this MOOC, we looked at first points, scores first, points, badges, and we went on in that way. All these actions are aimed at achieving the predetermined learning objectives. Which elements will be included in the training depends on the defined objectives, what skills and knowledge you want the students to acquire. And the activities that require independent work by students bring individual awards such as badges as well. Right. So, if we look at what affordances do Moodle offer for gamification, right? Moodle has got a progress bar. Progress bar is a Moodle plugin and visually shows what activities or resources students have to complete and their progress in the course. Another very important feature in Moodle is the display of quiz results. The results of quizzes or assignments that measure the level of acquired knowledge and skills by students can be visualized in additional block in course. And with the quiz, you'll find that students receive immediate feedback, and you can also see which students score the highest marks and the lowest marks. It becomes a very competitive environment if that's what you actually want to achieve as well. Then another feature is the level up. Right, the block displays the current level of students in courses and the progress towards the next level. Colleagues, I don't want to go too much in detail with the gamification affordances, just to make you aware of these features. Then we have feedback and we have badges. So the point I'm making is we can gamify our courses, our online courses, because the Moodle platform does allow for these features. Colleagues, here I thought what's also important is to know, what kind of activities engage students in learning. So I want to share with you an example of a quiz question that we included in the baseline. Okay. And I also want to share with you the feedback that we provide to students, just so that we make it more meaningful for the student. So what we did was, as a baseline kind of assessment, we wanted students to kind of evaluate their own levels of digital competency. It was more a kind of self-assessment where we gave them feedback as well. So an example of such a question is, number one, you bought a DIY office chair in the original sealed package from an office supplier. When you get home, you open the box to put the parts together, but there is no manual or instruction document in the box. What would you do? A, go to YouTube and find a video that shows you exactly what to do. B, Google it. C, make a phone call to the showroom and ask for the instructions. D, ring a friend or family member who is really good at fixing things and ask them to come over. Okay, now that was one example. Example 2, you've just passed an exam with distinction. What is the first thing you would do? A, post it on Facebook with a photo or selfie of you celebrating it. B, email or send a Viber message to everyone in your list of contacts. C, ring your best friend. D, go out for dinner with friends or family. So colleagues, these type of questions that we had, it relates to the student's life. We know the profile of the students and we can't, we try to make it very practical. So we had 10 of these questions here. And on my right, you'll see feedback on the quiz. So students, they select the correct answer and then they assess themselves. If their answers has mostly A's, it means that they are bold and adventurous. You have knowledge of technology and social media and use it confidently in all sorts of everyday situations. You may sometimes need to be reminded that face-to-face communication is important too. So if they got B's, it means that they are familiar with online. You are aware of the sorts of information you can get from the internet, and you are comfortable using email. This usually serves you well, and you haven't found it necessary to use social media much so far. It would be worth getting to know other ways to use online tools, as it could save you time in some situations. And C's, face-to-face and friendly. You like to interact with people face-to-face and so far haven't realized the importance of using technology. Okay, face-to-face is best sometimes, but there may be occasions when talking to someone in person is not an option. And D, print-based documents and practical. You prefer not to waste time going online when it would be easier to find another way around the problem. Sometimes a practical solution makes most sense. However, mastering the basics of technology and online communication could open up some new opportunities for you. So this is the feedback that we give to the students, and this is a kind of interactive kind of quiz. Then, colleagues, I just want to give you a little teasers of what are in some of the learning units. The learning unit 4 is on content creation. So what we do is in the introduction, we outline to the student what are some of the activities that they have to engage with. For example, in one of the units, in the content creation, one of the activity is a Wordle, and we also allocate the points for completing the activities. And then we've got another activity on how digital you are. Then it's digital affordances within your environment, core digital skills, digital native or digital immigrant. Then we've got a scavenger hunt, word processing games, graphic time, editing documents, quiz, converting to PDF, word search. So the total points for all the activities are 100. Then we decided that if, for example, the student, after completing the first 3 activities, they should have, first 4 activities. If they've got 15 and more, then they earn themselves a badge, because it should be out of 20, right? They earn themselves a badge. And as we go on like that, for example, we give a cutoff mark here. If they achieve so many marks after completing 3 activities, they earn themselves a badge. And then the badge will result in another award, right? Colleagues, just to give you a little bit of a flavor of how we brought in the Africanization in one of the modules. This is in lesson 5 on collaboration. As we mentioned that we used African context, African animals and so forth. So here it's a buck, kudu. Hi, I'm Kuduzela. I stay in the Kruger National Park. I will be your guide to where you can get the sweetest marulas, right? And then here, this is all part of the introduction to the module. In lesson 5, you will learn about collaboration. You will learn about, collaboration and the use of online tools. You will know if you achieve the outcomes of this lesson, if you acquire a maize badge. So as the students complete the activities, they will get points and scores, which ultimately will earn them a maize badge. In this lesson, we introduced you to the game where Kuduzela, the kudu from the Kruger National Park, is the main character. The park has many marula trees with lots and lots of ripe, juicy and sweet marulas. However, it is not easy to get the marulas. So we give a little bit of context here, right? Then I just want to explain what is the whole rationale of the gaming techniques in this unit. So we say to the student here, the first obstacle you need to conquer is a tower, which is labeled as 21st century skills here, right? After successfully completing the word puzzle in section 5.3.2, you will earn points. The points will automatically collapse the tower barricade, okay? Which will then allow Kuduzela to pick up ripe marulas. Kuduzela will pick up the same number of marulas as the points you earn by completing the puzzle. Then the second obstacle will be a big thorn tree here. Here you will be required to create a team in MS Team and add the elephant, the warthog, Savabu, and the Quadira. After creating a team, you see, colleagues, we give another activity here. And then here, the third one, they will share the Kuduzela marulas they collected from lesson 1 to 4. So what we say is that with gamification, there is what we call progression pathways. As you progress in your learning, you earn more, you get more and more rewards, and ultimately you can, right, colleagues, this is another activity. I'm not going to share this here because of time, right? But in your own time, Denzel has uploaded this here. You can look at this activity here. I just want to conclude by saying most attempts at gamification currently miss the mark, but successful and sustainable gamification can convert customers into fans, turn work into fun, or make learning a joy. Thank you, colleagues. Denzel.
Thank you so much.
Ingrid, thanks.
Sheila, I think you're up next.
Yes, it's Sheila. I'm going to unshare.
Will you share your screen?
Thank you, colleagues, and good morning again. Is it still morning, or should I say good day?
It's still morning.
Thank you, colleagues. I must say hi to the UNESCO chair team, and thank you for the opportunity, and also the ADOVH for believing in us and giving us this opportunity. Prof. Letseka, I just want to say to you, ascending this stage of UNESCO chair is not easy, especially for me. All the time when I have to speak in this platform, I get some goosebumps. For me, this is a big stage, and I really appreciate the moment. So colleagues, without wasting more time, as it was indicated earlier on, Sheila, this storyboard.
Sheila,
Prof.
Can I just urge you to just relax and be yourself? Just calm down, relax, and be yourself, and everything will be okay.
All right, I'm sitting back as you are saying absolutely. That, yes, and now I feel more welcomed. Thank you, Prof, and thank you, colleagues. I believe I didn't share yet. Let me share quickly. Sorry for not sharing. This shows what I just said earlier on. Okay, so when I was appointed, because I believe it wasn't something that I volunteered to do, colleagues had a belief in me to say you can lead this storyboarding. I wasn't so sure. However, the great team that we have at ADOVH made things easy. And today I can say I'm so confident in storyboarding. And this one, the most difficult part was to Africanize it. Colleagues, as Dr. Kavenda indicated in her presentation that there were some goals that were set for the overall MOOC. We had to come up also with the goals for the activities as we were now telling the story for our content, for our designers to be able to design properly. We had to come up also with the rewards for the games, because if it doesn't have a reward, why is it a game? I believe even when we play games with our children, we promise them some rewards to say, if you finish this, I'll give you that. So the rewards were in the form of marula, as you can see in the picture there. As our students are engaging in the games and activities, the main aim is to collect marula. The more the marula beer will be brewed. So the marula beer will be the final product. Although the course itself is looking at students acquiring digital skills, knowledge, and attitudes. So colleagues, the MOOC has got 5 learning units, and these learning units, they take place in different areas. The first one, the first learning unit, it takes place in a reserve. In this reserve, we meet this elephant by the name of Nolwazi. I'm sure people who understand Zulu, they can tell us what Nolwazi means in English, but they will do that, I think, in the charts as I'm busy proceeding with the presentation. So Nolwazi is someone who knows everything in the reserve. And let me also indicate that I'm going to tell you 5 stories that are going to form one big story of this MOOC. So this is our first story of Learning Unit 1. And these animals we are going to meet in these stories, they serve different purposes to our students. Nolwazi, because she knows better, she serves as an advisor to the student. Then she will be helping the student to be able to access and also create some content in this MOOC. So Nolwazi and the student, they will be working together to understand foundational digital concepts such as softwares, devices, browsers, and also they will be able to create their Microsoft 365 logins. So now, throughout the learning unit, they will be doing quizzes, crossword puzzles, and when they are passing those quizzes and crossword puzzles, they collect marulas. And I think as Alosh has alluded to the fact that the number of points they get, that's the number of marula they are going to collect for that learning unit. But there's a final reward, which is a badge that they get at the end of the unit. And for this one, they get a water badge. Learning Unit 2, it takes place at the place called Ugutamba. And I don't know why do we like Zulu so much. Maybe it's because KwaZulu-Natal maybe is the biggest province. Am I right? Colleagues will tell us. So, however, at this Ugutamba, there's some contradiction there because we get someone by the name of Lebotswale. So this person is at the area where it is named in a different language. And again, the animal we get there, it has got another language. But let's hope that's part of integration. Lebotswale is going to be a friend to our student. So why they are becoming friends is because Lebotswale have been kicked out from the sounder. And now Lebotswale will help our students to navigate the online sources and platforms while playing games such as maze, memory games, and some of the activities that will earn them marula. And most importantly, our student will learn the navigation etiquette, threats and safety measures in the online space. And finally, they will be rewarded with a millet badge when they've completed all the activities. The third story takes place in the Savannah Forest, and the student will meet a companion there. This companion's name is Savabu. Savabu, because he can be able to climb trees and he is very fast, he will be able to help the student with the treasure hunt. So the treasure hunt will be to get more sweet marula. Remember, the main goal is to have a marula beer. I think there's no one who would like to drink a sour marula beer. We need a sweet one. So in this treasure hunt, they will go through some Moodle lesson activities, some question pages of Moodle, some quizzes, and also puzzles. So in those activities, they will be getting into different places where they get the treasure which is the marula, when they are passing those activities. And remember, with Moodle lesson activity, you are able to also grade the Moodle lesson activity, so you can give it points so that the students at the end of that lesson activity, they can get some points. So the final reward for Savabu and our student will be a sorghum badge at the end of getting, meaning that sorghum badge will be the final treasure that they get. But the skills that are going to be learned here, they will also learn to create and edit documents, as well as saving and sharing those documents. The fourth story is where the student will meet a great go-away bird that loves trees more than just flying in the sky. And this bird, we named it Guadira. And Guadira here will serve as a guide for the student, because Guadira is able to fly and be able to see what is happening down there. So she can guide the student to say, now it is safe for us to navigate the space. So they will be learning more about content sharing, including assistive devices. Remember, when we are creating our content, we should not forget our diverse students with disabilities and learning difficulties. So students will also be exposed to legal and ethical consideration, including copyright issues when sharing content. But they will be learning all those in a fun way. And at the end, they will be rewarded with a sugar badge. This takes us to our last story of Learning Unit 5, where the student will meet a Guduzela. Guduzela is in Kruger National Park. Majority of us knows where Kruger National Park is, and some of us, I think we love it. I used to be sometimes surprised when people visit Kruger National Park every year. They make it a tradition of their family to go there every year. But there was a day when I realized, why is that? But anyway, let me go back to the business of today. Guduzela and our student will engage in a game of breaking obstacles. So for them to break an obstacle, they must be able to pass an activity like a quiz, or maybe a Moodle lesson activity, or even they will have some puzzles to go through. So these obstacles, they are hiding marula. After they break the obstacle, they get the marula. But those marula, remember I said earlier on, then the number of points equal to the number of marula they are getting. So in this learning unit, they will also be learning 21st century skills and collaboration. The fun part of this learning activity, because it's the last one, is where now we see collaboration of Gudizela, Savabu, Gwadira, as well as the other animals which were involved in learning unit 1 to 4. Here the student will be asked to create a team on Teams, Microsoft Teams, for collaboration. And there will also be a quiz wherein the quiz is about creating Microsoft Teams to prove that this student have created that team and included all these characters in the team. There will be a last obstacle, which is a thorn tree, where the student and Guduzela cannot pass through. So, but through the teamwork and collaboration, they will be able to break that obstacle and get to the final treasure, which is the maize meal badge. But now the main important thing for the collaboration is to bring together all the marula they've been collecting throughout the learning units to make that marula beer. So colleagues, at this stage is the end of the story. However, for the students, it will be beginning of new knowledge and skills, because they will be understanding some of the foundational digital concepts. They will know how to navigate the online sources and platforms, and they will create some digital content to a certain extent, and they will be able to share that content with confidence, knowing the legalities and also the copyright issues. Most importantly, our students will know how to collaborate, and they will be able to identify the best collaborating tools. This storyboard, colleagues, was possible because of the team and hard work from the following individuals that you see on the screen. Most importantly, I would like to highlight that we worked as different teams also, because we had the content creating team, we had the ICT team, which was led by Richard Wright, and also we had our research partners, where Lydia Mbati was assisting most of the time. So colleagues, your hard work really paid, and I believe so far we are going to enjoy our marula beer. However, we shouldn't get drunk. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. Somebody said on the chats that they're now in the mood for a springbokkie, which is a marula and peppermint liqueur. It's almost 12 o'clock, so we can start preparing. Richard, I believe you're up next.
Yeah, thank you, Ingrid. I'll please share my screen. Okay, so good morning, everyone. So I'm going to be introducing you more the technical side of the implementation of the gamification. So, but I'm just going to take you more or less, through the whole process as well and where we fit in. So, as you've said, we started with the conceptualization. What is this story going to be about? And from a technical aspect, is we really wanted to, let everybody dream big, not limit it immediately by saying, what do we have available? Let's rather go and look what we can find to make it possible for people to create this story. So you can see at the beginning, we had a lot of fun. We even introduced VR so that we can really open the minds of what is possible. So from there, the content team started developing their content. So us as now the technical team also always had a look at what is being developed and how we're going to implement some of the activities and how we're going to present these resources. But really, when it came to the storyboarding side, when the themes really came together, we realized it's a very narrative type of gamification, and we will really have to think about how we're going to do all these activities. So when we approached the technical implementation, we sit with a little bit of a dilemma, because although this is now a gamified MOOC that we're going to create for students, at the end we also want to, I would say, document the process, fund research out of it. But in the end, it should be able for everyday academics to replicate something similar. So in that end, we could really have gone and looked at, big gaming engines, for instance, and see how we can integrate that. But we had to break it down. What is the tools available to us for normal academics? What is the skill level that we can teach them how to implement these various aspects? So from the beginning, we decided that we are going to be using the Moodle learning management system, as that is where Unisa is also migrating to, and because it already has some gamified elements that we can use, gamified tools such as the badges, the scoreboards, and all that sort of thing. But we really was looking now, how are we going to make these activities that's so interactive to break away from the norm of just normal quizzes that you would get in a normal setting, but also keep it in a storyboard area, or where it's a narrative that's being followed, but it also allows for branching. So from there, we actually really looked to see how many open source platforms. We tested multiple ones, what can be integrated easily into a learning management system. And the big idea behind this was also the tool that we use, because this will be an open course at the end. It should be for academics as well in the future. Doesn't matter which learning management system they are using, they should be able to implement something similar. So we looked really at accessible technologies that's available to everyone, something that's easy to learn and implement. And then we decided on the first technology stack of really looking at open source solutions. So we looked at the Moodle learning management system. What can it give us? What are the current gamification plugins that's available? But it is also generally installed with a learning management system by default. And then we really delved into H5P content. So for you that perhaps don't know H5P, it's open source type of interactive content that you can integrate into various learning management systems. So, and it's by default, it is supported by Moodle as well as various other ones such as Blackboard and Canvas. So it doesn't matter from which institution academic comes to come and do the course and how to create this course that we're creating, they can actually implement the same technologies. So we really looked at, also some of the games that might need a little bit more interactivity. So we looked at, for instance, open source content that we can embed on the page. And that's where we looked at the Scratch coding as well. And it's also really a platform to go have a look at to learn the fundamentals of programming. And you can quite easily, how can I say, learn programming and then make that content available for people to learn from. But we also wanted to, from the beginning, to really emphasize what is the possibilities of what gamification can bring and using the latest technologies. We, from the beginning, wanted a social element, a social chat. So it's currently all learning management systems really do not have that social element to it. It's that what students are accustomed to. For instance, in Moodle, you will have a chat feature that you set at a specific time. They have to go and chat on there, but it's not a free flowing of information, sharing of images and videos that we would want to see in our gamification course. Because the big reason is because this will be a self-paced course, so the students that's participating in the course at every given time, they must be able to interact with each other as well, ask questions, support each other through hurdles that they might have to overcome. And then secondly, we also want to investigate a virtual learning assistant. Now, the reason I'm calling it a virtual learning assistant is we looked at chatbots, the chatbots that's available currently. We approached Microsoft also for support on what type of chatbot can we bring into this learning environment that will really benefit the students. So the big requirements that we needed from our side is the chatbot must be able to guide the students. So when they start, how do I get started with the scores? What is going to happen? What should you do next? But also assist the student if they get stuck. So if it picks up, for instance, the students got a very low mark in a certain area, perhaps direct them to resources where they can actually go and build up the skill to pass the certain aspect. So in that case, we are really working with Microsoft, and we hope that it will be a success this year to bring it the first, real virtual learning assistant into a learning management system. And technologies, as I mentioned, will be more or less based on chatbot, but a little bit more advanced with cognitive learning from the chatbot, so that it can actually learn from the student's experience on what to do next. From all the various tools that we had available, with Moodle and with H5P, we were able to, do the narrative story line with the H5P. Badges, that was part of Moodle. We have got the leaderboard, also a plugin for Moodle that can track the progress. And then the progress bar, that's very standard at this moment. The point system in terms of, the Amarulas, how many Amarulas do you gain? And then also very interactive content that we also did through H5P integration and through embedding different, how can I say, platforms that can provide an interactive game to complete something. So it's really also, the games and everything we had to design, or there was some that was already available that we just had to adapt. And to create a real theme, we adapted all the images, how can I say, to really give it a contextual feel throughout the whole course. So the last one that we currently testing out is the social chat. We're actually looking at Rocket Chat, and that will really integrates well with the learning management systems such as Moodle, but it will give that free chat that's available always on every step to guide students where they can chat with each other, with facilitators, and really help each other out through the whole process. So as we also mentioned, all the lessons are linked to badges. As you can see, here's a few screenshots. So we really wanted to went almost a presentation type of approach, where it's very easy to navigation. The interface is, how can I say, bold and clear. And as they progress, they will earn all the badges that you can see on the right-hand side, the mazes as they go through the different stages of the content, as was introduced by Dr. Govender. So for just a quick for what's going to happen next is, so we are still busy with the implementation. So this is year where we said really Dream 3 is sometimes getting back a little bit at us. So we, when you approach something like this gamification, the time it takes to create these graphics, videos, interactive tools, and really customize it to have a look and feel that's consistent throughout the program. It does take a lot of time to develop, and in terms of the graphics, if the skills aren't readily available to be used within the institution. And then what we want to do now is really just complete the final development, do the review of it, pilot it with students. Once we've piloted with students, then we will look at also perhaps bringing in professional narration and graphic design. For all the graphics that we did develop in-house using open source images. So we will perhaps at some areas need a little bit of graphic design input just to make it a little bit more professional. And then from there, we will review feedback and improve. And then, as we mentioned, we are exploring the possibilities with Microsoft on a virtual learning assistant, and also testing out the chat that we want to integrate into the platform. So then for the year ahead, we are really looking forward to review and then develop further, and then finally pilot the student MOOC, and there from then on actually develop the MOOC for academics on how to create something similar through all the lessons that we learned. Because this process really, from our side, we took a lot of research, test out different platforms, see what works, what doesn't work. So in the future, it will actually then, when we can pass on that knowledge for anybody that has to do something similar, it can be a lot quicker process, and they already have a solid base of tools that they can readily rely on. So I just quickly want to show you a little demo of what we have. So this is currently the site that we are working on. So also one thing why when we approach any tools that we are using, you know, there's still a learning aspect to it. So the scores that they achieve through activity, the you know, or quiz or the progress, you know, it must still talk back to the learning management system. So it's very easy to, for instance, go and have a look, as I mentioned, at a gaming engine that can quickly build you something that's similar. But unfortunately, the links aren't there to talk back to the learning management system where their progress is actually, how can I say, tracked, and then also, you know, the scores, and to see have they actually achieved the learning outcomes. So that's why it's still fundamental for us that everything talks back to the learning management system, and that's why H5P actually became so very important for us to use. So just to give you a quick example, overview of the site, so you can see we've got the badges. The badges are currently, once we finalize, we will implement the badges that they will earn according to the activities and achievements. We've got the score that goes up. So as they complete activities, they will earn additional amarulas as they progress through all the courses. We've got a completion progress so that they can always see how far they are. Is there perhaps an activity that they need skip? So they can always quickly go back and just do an activity if they see they did skip any activities. And then also just to create that competitiveness, we've got a ranking system that will, for instance, show all the participants on this week what is their ranking so that they can compete against each other. And then one aspect that's still not, or that the two that we are investigating, implementing, is then the social chat, and then as well as the robotic assistant or the virtual assistant, like a chatbot. So as you can see, we wanted to create the interface very easily because we've got students starting from various stages. So they might already be proficient with technology. Maybe they're just familiar with smartphones. So one of the things that we really wanted to do is make it available so it works quite well on smartphones. So the tool that they use can quickly be scaled up so that they can really focus on the content. And then from here, they can, for instance, click a lesson, or they can continue and select the getting started, the orientation phase. So you can see even on the orientation, it's very easy. If you ever played, for instance, Angry Birds or any of the new, mobile games, it's very intuitive how the navigation works through the various areas. I just quickly want to show you this one. So I'm just going to make this one also a bit bigger. So it always starts off with the storyline. Where are you heading on the map? And then it's the introduction by the character to introduce the story, and then the character guides you through various aspects. As I mentioned, there's also branching. So for instance, if they already know, what is a specific topic, then they can easily skip certain areas, or it guides them through deeper into, how to set up the basics. So it's very important for us so if you've got a student that already knows, for instance, foundational terms, they must be able to progress through it very quickly so that they can get to the more areas where they need to be taught on. But also, for the ones that really needs the foundational support, that the material is there and available for them. Okay, so I'll just quickly continue this one. So basically, a lot of the things, these activities that they complete as they progress, they earn their points as they go along. They introduce to various concepts, material, and then there's also, for instance, activities that they have to do, for instance, drag and drop. So while they're even learning what the device is, they also learn actually how to use the mouse and the dragging and dropping of, for instance, certain aspects. And so, yes, so as you can see, it's a very storyline based, but actually as they progress through the how can I say, through these various aspects, it does introduce where they perhaps have to leave the learning or the space and then navigate to activities that's outside of this specific area to actually learn how a normal learning management system works. So I'll just quickly see if I can get to a link that will show you that. Okay, so there's also various cards to learn various activities. I'm just going to skip this one quickly. Let me rather go back here. So you'll see the way it's actually structured is very linear as well, although they can skip certain areas. But as they actually go ahead, you know, they will be, for instance, having to do a crossword, for instance. So that's not integrated on the slide. It's on a different aspect where they have to fill in the crosswords to test their understanding. And through this, they actually learn the navigation of the browser as well, how to move from one lesson to the next one. So you can see we really start with the very foundation. It's just a slideshow that you need to know how to click the next button. But then as you progress, it takes you outside into the wider web, and it brings you back in, and it gives you a different activity to test your understanding, and then it pushes you out more and more until you get to the Word activities where you have to go actually do physical Word document. And then in the final lesson, really then how you collaborate with Office 365, creating a team, sharing documents, and all those concepts as well. So it takes them very quickly from foundational to more advanced aspects through a very fun and interactive way. So that is from my side. Very quick introduction how the development is currently. I must say it is a very fun development. We learned quite a lot through the stages and working with the characters. And I think once we get this launched and piloted, and especially when we can make it available to teach others as well, the skills that we need, we can really make an improvement on the interactivity with students in the online learning space. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Vanessa, you're the last one up. I see we're running out of time, so you might have to be a bit quick if you can.
Good afternoon, almost afternoon. I will be quick. I am very grateful and quite happy to have given a little bit more time to Richard. And thank you, Richard, for that reference of Angry Birds. It's one of my favorite games to play, as we've joked quite a bit in some of our brainstorming sessions. So colleagues, just in terms of what you can expect from our presentation, I'm just going to quickly give you a quick overview of what the activities are for our particular project. I'm just going to give you a brief overview of mixed methods and then the type of mixed methods design that we've chosen for the project and also why. So colleagues, if we have to have a look at what we are trying to do in terms of supporting undergraduate student support, and of course for our readiness, we've got a number of activities that actually in essence could form mini research projects on their own, and this was part of our challenge. So you can see from the various activities, we've got 7 activities. We've got our baseline, which is already done, and Richard and David are busy building a dashboard for the results, and we're busy finalizing the report for submission by Friday. We then, of course, have our activity 2, which is our gamification, which we have presented quite a bit on today, just to give you an idea of some of the activities that as ADOVH we are busy engaging in. We are also looking at learning analytics and how to develop learning analytics dashboards that integrate seamlessly with some of the other dashboards that are also being developed on an institutional level and at various levels within our institution. We've already spoken about the MOOCs that we have in place that we've developed, and we are also looking at developing a student support app, some digital learning objects, and then of course the major thrust of what I'm going to be talking about is how do we actually evaluate whether or not we have met the objectives that we are looking at. So colleagues, just in terms of mixed methods research, those of you who work with mixed methods knows that it's the intentional combining both qualitative and quantitative tools and techniques with the idea that we really want to be able to leverage the strength of both. So what I particularly like about mixed methods is that we can address various research questions that other methods in isolation don't necessarily address. And of course, this strengthens some of the inferences that we would then be able to make. I think it's very important from our perspective as a project team that what we think about mixed methods is we really see that this qualitative and quantitative traditions are on a continuum, and we don't view these as dichotomies, but we can see ourselves moving along this continuum by trying to address as best we can whichever research question that we are busy with. So just in terms of design, we have our variables that we want to look at, which offers us the breadth, which is what we want. But we also want some process-orientated information, which provides us the depth that we are looking for. So we are intentionally using both numbers and words in order to address our research questions. And when we are trying to look at our sample sizes for both qualitative and quantitative, we are trying to manage the strength of quantitative research given the numbers that we have so that we can make generalizations. But in terms of our qualitative, we also want to be able to identify those exemplary cases and really go a little bit deeper into our understanding. So we are actually using abductive reasoning, where we are intentionally combining deductive reasoning as well as inductive reasoning. And then, of course, what we ultimately want to do is we want to extend our data and to be able to understand the phenomenon in a little bit more depth. So when we start to think about mixed methods, in terms of our evaluation design, what we want to do is we want to integrate different evaluation methods at every single stage of the evaluation process. So as you can see, what we are busy doing, if you cast your mind back to all of the activities, we are actually designing backwards. So we know that we want to, at the end of the day, do an impact evaluation, but at the same time, if we have a look at all of these activities, what we really want to do is we want to be able to also feed into the development process and to make things better. So with the idea that we are designing backwards, we are looking at the ultimate evaluation. We are now breaking down all of these activities into bite-sized little pieces, and we are going to be collecting data on each of these activities using a non-experimental design because we've got one group. Of course, we are not making huge claims. We are not using another university as a control group, for example. So we are using a pre-test, post-test design, which does make some of our inferences a little bit stronger. So what we are looking at, we are exploring differences over time. So for example, in terms of some of the MOOCs, we are exploring knowledge development. Of course, we acknowledge that the type of design that we have chosen, while fit for purpose for what we want to accomplish, does not account for randomization, nor does it account for manipulation of variables. And our whole idea regarding this is that because we've got these various activities, and that we would like to explore, we've got different evaluation questions which are directly related to the activities. So it's not a one size fits all, which means that this non-experimental design makes it easier for us in order to meet the things that we would like to meet. We are also very, very mindful of validity and reliability issues related to non-experimental designs. And what we are trying to do is make sure that we not only look at legitimation, which is important for mixed methods, but that we also look at the internal and external validity when we are looking at an experimental design of this nature. So if we have to start to look at our mixed methods examination, evaluation design, what we are trying to do is we are trying to assess effectiveness, as well as look at whether or not the outcomes that we have set for ourselves have been met. In terms of this, what we have decided as a team is that we are looking at a sequential design. So at this point, for the most part, we will be looking at a sequential design, but as I've mentioned earlier, some of the activities are quite nuanced, which means that on the whole, while we are looking at sequential designs, it may call for some kind of concurrent thinking in terms of collecting qualitative and quantitative data at the same time. But on the whole, what we are looking at is a sequential design where we've got our quantitative first, we have analysis and planning for the second round, which would be qualitative. We then do our analysis and we do round 3 planning, which would then be quantitative again, and then looking at the analysis. I think for our purposes, there are 5 purposes when we start to think about mixed methods evaluation designs. What we are focusing on is we are looking at expansion. We want to provide further explanation. So when we are looking at our quantitative analysis and we're going into our qualitative, we really want to explore why certain things are coming out of the data. We are also looking at convergence in the sense that we want to examine the extent to which our qualitative data supports our quantitative data. And then, of course, we want to also look at complementarity, which means that we want to be able to explore some of these further outcomes that might come up that we didn't necessarily anticipate in the beginning. I do think that it's important that I just say something briefly about what our overarching framework is. We are working very much from a pragmatic point of view, but when we are looking at an evaluation, we are looking at evidence for effectiveness. So there are certain stages that we are looking at, and then you can also see in the presentation that Richard presented in terms of the different steps in terms of our gamification. So the first step is formative research to establish understanding and develop some of the theory, which then guides our interventions. We always have our small-scale trials to test our interventions to see whether or not they're working. Then, of course, small-scale effectiveness trials to test our interventions in practice, and then scaling up. I think it's also very, very important that we are mindful of systems and acknowledging the system. So we know we are trying to understand the ecology of our students in terms of the macro systems that they are working in, the exosystems, the macro systems, as well as the microsystems, macrosystems, chronosystems, and exosystems. My apologies, colleagues, I got those mixed up. And then, of course, so working from an evaluation perspective, where we are really looking at an interactive framework which guides us, as well as our practitioners, not only in terms of the dissemination and implementation, so a synthesis and translation of evidence, but also looking at the site of delivery and the capacity to support these interventions, looking at, for example, what Moodle can do, looking, for example, what the various options are for us, but also looking at the technical assistance and consultation that we need in order to enhance the capacity for implementation and sustainability. Thank you, colleagues. That was short, sweet, and to the point. Ingrid, I hope that was short enough.
Thank you, Vanessa. That was very short. I really appreciate it. Prof. Letzika, that's it from our team. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and I hand back to you.
Thank you, team. I'm really excited about this presentation, and for various reasons. Denzel, when he spoke, he probably should have also let you know that when the studio was launched, Professor McKay and myself were guests. We both were required, and we did give our keynote address at the launch of the studio, and we knew then that there were lots of things in terms of innovation, progress that were going to emerge from the studio, and listening to you guys as a team and following through the consultation, the networks across the world, how efforts were made to really turn the studio into a more broadly consultative process, but also a facility that then embraces ranges and ranges of technology and technological innovation, ideas and insights from across the world. It fills me with really a high sense of delight and fulfillment. But when Denzel presented, he spoke about the H in the ADOVH, which is the hub. And a lot of you who have attended our UNESCO Chair seminars will know that one of the founding objectives of the UNESCO Chair is to turn it into a Southern African regional HODL hub. So I was actually smiling when I heard that explanation, that we seem to have been dovetailing rather similar ideas. We seem to have been thinking alike in terms of creating, in my case, a platform, in your case, a facility. But that the intention of which from the start was to serve as a hub. A hub is a melting pot where people come in, share ideas, exchange, cross-pollinate, network. We are doing that, and I'm delighted that the studio is doing exactly that. So it looks like we are moving in the direction where at Unisa, in all our different endeavors, we are trying to create hubs, which is where opportunities, supportive and enabling environment can be created for all of us as practitioners and theoreticians to come in, share ideas, cross-pollinate, help each other grow, and move the ODEL agenda of Unisa forward. So really, this has been a really, really wholesome presentation. And I'm also glad to hear from the team that I think 3 of the members, I'm not sure, I just heard that Salosha is no longer with us, but I actually learned that all of the people, the majority of the people who are there, from Professor Sherman to Sheila, you name them. I mean, these are people. These are my colleagues in the College of Education. So that's also something that fills me with delight, that members of the College of Education are out there, knocking at doors, rattling things up, but making these tangible, concrete contributions towards the innovation that is so dearly needed in an environment like this. Anyway, thank you very much, Tim. I wonder if Denzel is back, or has he been finally coveted?
I'm here, Prof.
Yeah, at some stage we had to look into our reserve and substitute, and I think Ingrid came in, and Ingrid, you did an excellent job as a substitute. So yeah, thank you very much for that, and thanks Denzel, thanks the team, all of you, and right in Cape Town. So this is the moment when I lay down the rules to say, the purpose of this gathering was sharing, and the sharing has been done really to its logical conclusion and to the best of your abilities, and for that we are very grateful. This is a moment when we open the floor, and I need to say that when we open the floor, we are opening the floor. Yes, there will be questions, but we also encourage people, if there are opportunities for comments are welcome. If some of you have experiences of studios that you think bring information that can add value to this project and the initiative, and can actually enhance the quality not only of our discussion but of an understanding going forward, you are all welcome. I always want to say that when we get to this point, this is supposedly a question and answer, but I think we need to regard it as a conversation stage. It's a stage where we share experience. So I'm just getting home now. I've been listening and managing this through logging in the phone. So I'll soon transfer to a laptop. But to me, assist me, Musa. Please assist me if there are hands. I may not be able to see them, so please assist me to see the hands, so that we can then manage the process well. So the floor is now open. So team, assist me if there are hands. Let's just guide me so that I know who comes first and how do we let people in.
Thank you.
Musa?
Hi, Prof. There are no hands yet.
Wow, that would be a huge disappointment, isn't it?
Not really, Prof. I think because the chat room has been very busy and the team has been responding to questions as they come up.
Yes, I was about to say, if barring visible hands, can you then guide us through any emergent themes that you probably are able to spot in the chat box? If there are questions or comments that may not have been addressed now, can anyone, Musa, can you go through the chat box and guide us through what's in there? What are the other comments or questions that probably may need to be drawn to the attention of the team or for purposes of conversation? Thank you.
There's a question in the chat from Boni Libelwane. You asked, are there any future plans of continuing to roll out the mini studios to the regions for the development of support multimedia resources by support staff based in the regions?
That's a very important question. Yeah, and it's a question that basically says, can we then be responsive to the decentralization principle, given that the studio is located on main campus, but Unisa is not just the Unisa at main campus. There are regions, we even have satellites everywhere, somewhere in Addis Ababa. It's a good question. I hope, Denzel, you picked that up. I'm not going to ask you. Musa, can you pick up important questions that probably reach? Scroll through and see if there's enough. I'm about to transfer to the laptop, so I should be able to then pick up that question. But in the meantime, please assist me to see if beyond that question, there are other questions that probably needs to be read out so that the team can then brace themselves to dealing with them. To me, you can also be in the mix. Keep looking.
Prof, a lot of the questions have been dealt with. But I think Denzel wanted to come in on the previous one. I think he wanted to respond and you didn't hear him.
Oh, I did. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Denzel, you want to come in?
Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Prof. Thanks to me for that. In terms of the regions looking forward towards studios, actually, there are a few regions that have already asked DED for funding. And because we've developed the business plan as part of ADOVH, we've actually included that this could be a similar prototype could be rolled out to the different regions. And in noting that, it makes it easier that once the regions get funding, for example, I think Western Cape has reserved funding through a DED initiative, and they will then be putting one of those studios, a similar type of prototype in their own regions as well. So there are definitely already initiatives to roll out similar type of mini studios in the different regions as well, Prof. Thanks.
And the team add to that. There's a hand by how's Danny Silemtsatsi? Danny?
Thank you, Prof. And good afternoon, colleagues, and a very informative presentation from the presenters. My question is, I hope I heard correctly. There was a time where Denzel said they are going to put, I can't remember whether it's Denzel or Mr. Wright, that they are going to put these MOOCs on Moodle, and there will be a chat box. That chat box, is the chat box going to be manned throughout 24/7, or are you going to prepare readily available answers for the questions?
Thanks, Prof. Can I respond to that? Okay. So, Richard, you can come in and help me as well. So the chatbot is basically a AI system, machine learning system that runs at the back. And what we will do then is program a series of answers and questions into the chatbot. This is where Richard mentioned earlier that we have actually now linked up with Microsoft and more specifically Nuance, the company Nuance, to develop the chatbot for us. So there's no chatbot actually developed for Moodle. So we want to actually be the first one. Hopefully we can be the first one to pioneer the space with Microsoft. That chatbot will be a chatbot that learns from our students' engagement. So it means as students start asking those questions, it will continuously learn and provide solutions to that. In this sense, it will be a continuous chatbot that can provide that 24/7 type of support that we are looking at. But to some extent, it will obviously be dependent upon the information that we feed back into the chatbot. And this is where we are actually looking at creating a wide enough database to understand the student challenges and then feed back into those type of questions that our students want, so that they don't have to wait for a human response from one of our colleagues. They can get that instant response. But let me also ask Richard to feed a little bit back on that. Richard?
Yes, so when it comes to the chatbot, and that's why I was hesitant when we use the name, but it is the one that most will describe it. So the idea is actually when we do this chatbot, it's not to integrate it directly with one course. It must integrate with the Moodle learning management system. So by doing that, it will integrate with the database. So it will know, for instance, what courses provide what competencies, what topics are covered in different courses. So it must use all that information, not just from the one course, but the entire site that's available, and then help and assist students according to that. So if they do, for instance, now the one in digital literacy, and they get stuck on a concept of ethics, and then the bot can, for instance, indicate to them, there's another open course here that you can go do about ethics. Maybe go do that, and then you come back. So initially it will be programmed, but we want to do the programming so it's as broad as possible, and it learns by itself through all the information in the learning management system. So when it's deployed, for instance, say in the future, perhaps in other learning management systems, they can already implement the same rules and perhaps just also add to some of the more specific to the environment. But it shouldn't be that it takes months and months just to set it up for one course. It should actually be learning how to work with the entire learning management system so that it can easily be implemented to any future course from there, and be able to assist and guide the students with the data that's available in the databases. Thanks, Denzel.
Well, thanks, Denzel and Ian. I'm now in the main gadget. I'm home now, and I'm connected to the laptop, so I'll be able to see if there are hands. But I'm also scrolling through to see if there are important questions or takeaways that maybe we might need to deal with. So, comments, questions, observations, suggestions. The floor is open. Someone says, Danisla, again, you want to come in?
Prof, you know what? I had a chat. I've put something
on the
down,
chart.
and yeah, and to me, promised to ask someone and respond to that.
Okay, let me scroll through and see if I can find it.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's relevant. Hopefully, I'm not exposing myself.
It's okay. This is a conversation. At conversations, we become vulnerable, all of us. But that's the whole key. We are all on a learning curve here. You want to speak to it?
Yes, Ostani, please, if you speak to it, I think that would help, because so that just give it a bit of context.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to know if this project is similar to what University of Pretoria is calling it a space place. That was my question. Because I remember I attended something and they mentioned something similar to this, where you are playing, but though their focus was more on coming up with a model. So I just wanted to know, is this going to be similar to that, or is it something totally different?
Yeah, I think Denzel can come into that. When Denzel explained the art of, I like the idea, Denzel, where you zoomed into the concept of the hub. But over to you. It's just the thought that goes on in my head at the time as Danisilo was asking the question. The team can respond
Thanks,
to
Prof. Thanks, Prof. Yeah. So colleagues, remember one of the things that we miss out at Unisa, and maybe I should say this very carefully, is that we tend to mass roll out innovation without testing it in a safe space. And then we have the challenges, the kind of hiccups that we have, and we have great disappointment from academics, from students. This space is designed as what we call, we cultivated this concept of an incubator. That means we take the ideas, and for lack of a better word, we play around with the ingredients. We bake up what comes out as part of something that we can then pilot. And this is why you'll notice that we have a very strong research agenda, is that when we finish the innovation, there must be data to support this of why it is worthwhile mass rolling out, or on the other hand, why it is not possible to scale this. And this is where ADOVH comes in, is to really look at it as not just a safe space for academics to innovate, or for those members that join the hub to innovate, but it is really a data-driven kind of approach for us to say that we've tested, we've piloted, and we've got data to either support the implementation, or to say that this is not supported on a mass scale. So maybe we need to look at smaller modules that can roll these things out. And for us is quite critical. So I'm not too familiar with the University of Pretoria Safe Space, but for us, it is more of that kind of exploratory space that is with rich data that can support the mandate of the university in terms of where we want to go. But I should also say this, that the mandate of ADOVH is not restricted just to the institution. When we applied for funding for DED, it came on the background of the Minister of Higher Education saying, amidst COVID, go to Unisa. And everybody was looking at each other and saying, come to Unisa. And for us at that point, yes, Unisa did have was already part of that approach of how we could mass roll out. We may not have had all the solutions that the minister wanted at that time for the country, but there were things that we were doing that we had some standards and also some ways of testing out what could have been mass rolled out in terms of the country. So this is why at that backdrop, ADOVH came out. And we actually don't just provide support to Unisa. We've also ran workshops for UKZN. We have ran workshops for DUT. And I know some of our colleagues are also now running some sessions at different technical universities as well. So I think that for us is where Prof is actually stressing that notion that we came out earlier. The idea of the hub, but not just an internal hub for the institution, but also a national hub. And maybe later on with the context that Prof has given us with Malawi and the VC's visit from Zimbabwe Open University, that we could also then expand to say that we also feed back into some continental agenda as well, which is somewhere long-term that we really want to frame. And this is why we actually approached this particular session of thinking of innovation in and for Africa. And I hope that helps, Prof.
Yeah, there are new messages that are coming through in the chat. I think we probably need to have a look at them and see where it goes. But if there are more questions, again, let's have the conversations going on and let's see where it takes us. I think this is a very important platform. My memory of the studio when it was launched was and I was with Professor McKay. It was exactly what Denzel was saying, that there were very lofty ideas about this studio, the intent and the envisaged impact. And I'm beginning to have that sense that we are already at that level where gradually, slowly but surely, the studio is beginning to as it were, fulfill that initial mandate for which it was intended, which is to open up spaces and make people come in and experiment. Ingrid says she's not good at developing videos. The studio is actually, in my view, a state-of-the-art facility where you just come in, you sit there, you plug your memory stick in, and you go, and the editing is done. So I think what this is all about is to encourage people to look at the studio as a new addition into our own online space, to say, for the first time, we have a studio where we can come in and do amazing things that we can utilize to assist our students to really get a sense of the visual, the audio, or a combination of that as a way of teaching facilities. So I think this is a great idea. I was trying to see if I can pick up some of the messages that are coming through, but it looks like they're just comments and thank yous for the team for a good presentation. So there's nothing much to report on here. It's just Danisile. You are all over the place here. All right. Musa, hands by your side. Can you see any hands?
No, Prof, I do not see any hands.
Yeah. I wanted to ask the team, and when Sheila was presenting, I know we are going digital. The whole idea of that MOOC is going digital, and it's a good innovation. But I thought we could have maybe a short conversation. When Sheila was presenting about trying to get us drunk with Marula, what I liked about that story was it in a way, from my background as somebody who comes from a typical African household, was the storyline, the story told through animals. That's how some of us grew up. And I was wondering if people are aware that what came out of Sheila's presentation in a digital space could be looked at as a way of bringing a much more richer, profoundly rich Africanization perspective, the use of the storyline, the kudus and all the monkeys. This is how stories are told. Who is this lady in KwaZulu-Natal who is a powerful storyteller? And if you look at her books and stories, they are always plotted along narratives that come from animals engaging, but sending very powerful moral stories. So I just thought I should flag that up. I found that quite fascinating, that as you are doing the MOOCs, you are bringing in the African element of the using animals. Animals basically taking the lead, as it were, humanizing. From the literature point of view, we call that humanization. You know, you give the animal that kind of a human element, but because you give them the responsibility to provide a leadership into very important initiatives of guiding students through the technological space. It's an observation that I thought I should throw around. Sheila, would you like to comment on that?
Thank you, Prof. And when I was telling that story as an early childhood teacher,
yes,
I pictured myself sitting down on a mat and having you in front of me, telling you. So that's how the storytelling becomes very interesting, because you imagine, you visualize, and as also I was presenting, I'm thinking some of the colleagues were trying to imagine that Savabu, they were trying to imagine that Nolwazi showing his or her knowledge about the reserve. Thank you, Prof. And thank you, colleagues.
Who is, before you go, Sheila, who is this lady in KwaZulu-Natal who is a storyteller? Do you can also help there?
Why the name is going away, and the lady I used to tell, this lady who used to work at the Department of Leadership and Management, that she has some resemblance of that lady.
Yeah.
She has written.
Yes. You know, the moment I think of the name, it escapes, but I can see her face. I can see her energy when she's reading and she's telling stories to kids. it's that sort of thing. And when you started going through the role, that humanization of the storylines that runs through Dina Stroppe's books just came rushing into my face. There was a hand that came out and quickly it disappeared. Goodness me, now I don't know who that is. All right. Okay, there have been no further questions. Musa, is there a question?
Oh, no.
Oh, Musa, I want to leave the space for Musa. I had a huge conversation with Musa.
Don't mention that part. That stays.
No, I was mentioning the best part of it. that Musa is the baby in the chair. She felt that she needs to be given this slot to really thank the team. So Musa is going to give a vote of thanks for the team. She just felt that this is something that as a millennial she identifies with. So let's hear, Musa, would you then give a vote of thanks? I'm so looking forward to that.
Sure. Thank you to the ADOVH team for this practical and really insightful presentation. Thank you to Dr. Chetty, who gave us an overview of the ADOVH studio and its activities, to Dr. Marie, who spoke to us on using the studio to develop quick student video tutorials, Dr. Govender, who took us through content development for an African gamified MOOC, Dr. Mpatlela, who touched on storyboarding and African MOOC, for Richard for talking to us on technology for gamified MOOC and demo. And last but not least, thank you to Dr. Sherman, who spoke on research methodology and opportunities. I really hope that our attendees are inspired and excited to make use of this awesome studio. Thank you to our attendees for being here today. We always appreciate your presence and support at our webinars. Thank you to Prof. Ledzega, our chair, for facilitating our Q&A today. And last but not least, thank you to Dumelo Motaung for organizing this webinar and bringing us together this morning and now afternoon. If you have registered for our webinar, you'll get the details of our next webinar straight into your inbox as soon as we have finalized those details, and we sure hope to see you there. Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely day further, and goodbye.
Yeah. I need to close this by thanking the team, colleagues, Musa and Dumi. They are basically the drivers. If you have read Animal Farm, there was a horse there, a workaholic horse that actually died in the field. His name was Boxer, who never complained, who just plowed on, even when he was sick, he was ill, he was hungry, and the pigs were busy eating, chanting 4 legs good, 2 legs bad, whatever it was. So I need to close this by thanking my team. The UNESCO Chair Secretariat makes me, as a head of this unit, look good, because these are 2 young women who are undoubtedly very professional in the way they do work. Musa will say to me at the beginning of the week, Prof, these are to do things. Please don't forget this and this and this. And at the level where I am, busy as I am, I need that voice that keeps reminding me. Timmy will be saying, Prof, I was working on the minutes, something is not right. Let's run through this. The minutes read this and this, and when we come in and we look at this, everything comes out. So I want to thank the team. Musa, you forgot 2 other very important people who are our postdoctoral fellows, Dr. Olugbara and Dr. Tintolo, and our adjunct seconded professor, Professor Gezani Baloyi. He's now effectively a member of the chair through secondment. So this is the team that supports me. Anyone who attends the UNESCO chair seminars, you should know that because I'm someone who sits at the top, it may look good, but without this team, all these wonderful things, this whole coordination, this whole presentation, this whole gathering, this hub might not see the light of day. So my team, thank you very much. I appreciate you are having my back all the time. But again, to reiterate, Musa, thank you all people who are gathered here. Your presence, your ever loyalty to the UNESCO Chair Seminar is deeply appreciated, and you will receive information on the next research seminar. We try to have 10 seminars a year, and we always endeavor to have a seminar every month. We don't lose sight of that. So thank you very much, and please look after yourselves. The president said we shouldn't wear masks, that COVID is dying, but the message is continue to be vigilant, look after yourself. You don't want to get caught up in some kind of an unknown flu virus that can then render you completely immobilized. With those words, thank you very much. I appreciate your presence. Goodbye.